Thank you, honey. Thank you, thank you. Wow, I don't even know how to follow that introduction. So we got to put this lapel just on over here. Should we put it on here? Like that? Here. Where you want to put that on?
I'm going to put that right here.
Okay. I want to make sure all the folks online, and
Okay.
I'm going to put a shout out to Alexis. I know you're out there somewhere.
Hey guys, are we good?
So.
If you can hear me, it's all working.
Yeah, there's some.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
All right, fantastic. Well, I'm glad to be back at Phoebe, Pasadena. Wow, I love this place, and I'm glad that we had so many people coming out. I mean, especially with having to wear these things. So yes, I am a broker, and let's go on to the next slide. So I'm the managing partner with Oliver and Associates, which is a real estate company, as well as we do the REI group, which is an investment company. I do a lot of buyer and seller representation as a real estate broker, but for one thing, I never wanted to be a realtor, ever. I actually started out as a wholesaler. How many people here do know what a wholesaler is? Everybody, I hope, okay. I was a little bit of my background. My background is in computers, my master's in project management, technical project management to be more specific. I was the senior project manager for the Western US for Nortel. And then after that, I got recruited by GE and became a Six Sigma black belt and the top issues manager for GE for North America. I built GE's loan origination system where we were doing about $8 to $8.3 billion a month. So I know a little bit about lending. After that, went ahead and I started, I was traveling a lot with GE from here to Europe and things like that, making great money, well into six figures. But I wasn't happy. I was making tons of money, don't get me wrong. But I had two wonderful young boys at home. And I was flying 200,000 miles a year. 8 to 9 months of the year I was gone. I was missing my son play baseball, football. When he fell down and skinned his knee, Dad wasn't there. So I was sitting one time in my living room, it was about 3 in the morning. And those that know me know that I love wine. And I was sitting having a nice Cabernet. It was about 3 in the morning. And this guy came on TV and said, "You too can sell real estate." You guys, some of you guys seen those, right? And I'm looking there probably about a bottle and a half in going, if that idiot can do it, I can do that. So I go ahead and I pick up the phone and I call. And I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and leave a message or whatever. They answered the phone. And of course, it was one of those sales pitches, right? Hey, come on down. We have a free seminar. Da, 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 da. I'm like, okay, great. So I tell my wife, and the next day, I tell her, I says, hey, honey, I says, I know I want to get us back together. Let's do something special together, right? I signed us up for this real estate thing. And she's like, okay, cool. And so we go to this thing together. Now, mind you, my wife grew up here in La Cañada. Okay, so I'm originally from this area. So I know this area extremely well. She went to Sacred Heart. Everybody know where that is? We used to call it Horny Hill. Don't you tell Cindy. They both know my wife very well. But we go ahead, and she's very, very Catholic. And we go to this, and very proper at that time. I think I've corrupted her since. But we go to this real estate thing, and it's a sales pitch, obviously. And we're going through this, and it was like $900 and some odd to go to this 3-day thing. And I'm like, okay. She's like, hey, we can do that. And I'm like, that's $1,000, you know? Where are you? You know, where's my wife and who's the alien that captured you, you know? But I go ahead and I'm like, all right, you know, 3 days, we're going to go to Sacramento, enjoy ourselves. So I pay the $999 bucks, whatever, and I pay for it. We go to Sacramento, it's another pitch. And we ended up spending a certain amount of money, and I bought some classes. This was, anybody heard of Robert Kiyosaki? Okay, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's what that course was. I ended up taking the Rich Dad courses. And during that time, I made a goal. And during the sales pitch, you have to make 3 goals. One of them, has anybody heard of a Hall of Famer within Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what they call a Hall of Famer? There's 5 people internationally out of all the tens of thousands of people that go through. There's 5 people annually. I happen to be one. Okay, I worked with Robert Kiyosaki very closely, and his wife Kim. His wife Kim is an amazing speaker, by the way. If you ever get the chance to go see her, go see her. More so than him. And she's wonderful. But going through that, we go ahead and we go through the Robert Kiyosaki classes, and I make a goal that I want to become a full-time investor. I want to take my family to Hawaii, and I want to be a Hall of Famer. I've achieved all 3 of those. And as a full-time investor, I went ahead and they had what they called, in GE, they called, oh God, I'm trying to figure out what it was. Back then, they were doing some reorganization. Does anybody know what reorganization is in a large company? What is it? It's layoffs. So I go over and I'm already starting to try to do some wholesaling and stuff like that. But we go ahead and they were doing a lot of layoffs. And I went to my global leader and I said, hey, Uli, he was in Germany. And I said, what if I go ahead and I take one of those positions to save a position for somebody else? And he said, would you be willing to do that? And I said, yeah. So, we worked it out. We negotiated a separation, and I ended up, so basically losing my job. I had 2 kids, a mortgage payment, 2 car payments, and trying to figure out how to be a real estate investor. So I started wholesaling, and I built within the first 3 years a $1.2 million wholesale business, doing about 8 to 10 wholesales every single month at about $10,000 to $20,000 a pop. With my biggest deal in April of 2007, where I put 2 houses under contract for a net profit of $130,000 on a wholesale deal. How's that for 7 days worth of work? Not bad, right? So fast forward a little bit. What happened in 08? Anybody know? That was fun, right? So we started doing a lot of trustee sales. I ended up being a buyer for 2 hedge funds off of Wall Street, where we were buying probably 30 to 40 properties a month. As a contractor for those hedge funds, I was making about $5,000 a pop on each one of those. Nice little wholesale fee, huh? 30 to 40 a month. You guys do the math. From there, I was also doing a lot of my own flips. I flipped probably about 220 to 230 homes in multiple states. California, Nevada, Arizona primarily. I did 1 in Kentucky by accident. Oops. We were goofing around online. We bid, we won. I had to fly my partner out there and we still made an extra 10 grand. So not a bad thing. So a lot of trustees, property management. I have several group homes right now, as well as multifamily, single families, things like that. I am liquidating some of my stuff right now. I just believe that it's the time to liquidate some of that and recapture some of those things there. And then as well as I am a national coach. I coach with the Diamond Group. Anybody ever heard of Ricky Carruth? Anybody in here? You have? Okay. Yeah, there's a gentleman named Ricky Carruth. He is out of Alabama. And one of my team members brought him to me, and my whole team started following him. So he's an incredible speaker. He actually ended up sponsoring us. And he was one of the reasons that my whole team went over to eXp Real Estate. And I actually coach for him nationally now. And I think Alexis is online here. He's one of my mentorees right now. and doing a great job, by the way, and keep doing those videos and get back to work tonight. So you can take a brief break by watching me here tonight, okay? But other than that, let's go on. Let's get enough on me. I've done one or two. Is this thing? That's like playing the drums. Oh, wait, not Congo, right? Hey, we're going to have fun tonight, okay? Can we go now? Okay, there we go. All right, so anybody been following the economy right now? Well, as old Bob Dylan says, time to be changing, right? They're getting ready to change, folks. Get ready. Hold on. It's going to be a wild ride. All right. We're going to have fun, though, because with changes becomes opportunities. Okay. And we're going to do a little bit of a history tonight. So times are changing. A pandemic, major economic challenges, civil unrest. How many of you guys saw the riots all over the place, right? A lot of civil unrest. We had, what are they saying, January 6th or whatever in Washington? Lots of things happen, right? On both sides of the aisle. So I don't care what your political views are, okay? But they tend to do that amongst a number of other issues, political and otherwise. 2020 has forced people to deal with all sorts of social, spiritual, emotional, and economic changes, and we still have that coming. But there's a lot of good technology, things that have changed, and we're going to talk about that tonight too, and how people are moving, okay? It's also challenged people to explore ideas that they might not have considered 6 months to a year ago. How many people here that still work in a full-time job or in a hybrid? Sometimes you're working at the office, sometimes you're working at home. Anybody? Okay, I know my wife does that. She works for a law firm, and she goes in a couple of days. Most of the time, she's at home. Okay, because the technology allows us to do that. It's kind of neat, right? Especially but consider this as a silver lining if you're interested in small town real estate. Small town living is back. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the Industrial Revolution. I told you we're going to do a little bit of history tonight. How many industrial revolutions historically were there? Anybody? Give you a hint.
Only one. Industrial? Only one? Two?
Two. Say two.
Two, okay.
Perfect, Christina. But there's two. Now, the first wave was back in about 1760 through to about 1840. Okay. And basically, it began in Great Britain. It was in Europe. Hi.
Hi, Christina.
That Christina, not you, Christina. We love you still. We still love you. So the first industrial revolution actually started in Europe, okay? And there was a migration to Western Europe, okay? Great Britain, many had a lot of technological and, God, I can't even talk tonight, innovations that were of British origin. And by the mid-18th century there, Britain was the world's leading commercial nation. They did tons of trading, especially with like India, and a lot of stuff down in the Caribbean, things like that. So they were the huge hub of trade back in the late 1700s and 1800s, early 1800s. And they were trading with the colonies in North America and Caribbean within a major military and political hegemony in the Indian subcontinent, okay? Now, in the United States, the Industrial Revolution came in two waves. The first one actually first saw the rise of factories in the 1700s and early 1800s, which in innovations such as steam-powered spinning. We had a lot of the different weaving machines. Cotton gin was huge. Steamboats and locomotives and the telegraph. These are some of the things that they developed, and people started coming out of the rural areas, migrating where? To the cities. Why were they migrating to the cities? Jobs. Exactly. That's where the work was. Okay. They weren't able to work the farms. They came in for that easier money on some of the big factories. Okay. So the second wave was right after, basically following the Civil War. Okay. In the late 1800s, all the way up into the early 1900s, 1920-ish. We had the Roaring 20s in 1920. Following World War I love history. I don't know if any of you guys like history, but history repeats itself, especially in real estate. So if you know history and you follow history, you're going to make money. Okay? But after the Civil War, though, people began flocking to the bigger cities again in America now. Okay, now we're talking America. Because that first industrial revolution was going from the Eastern Bloc countries, some of the other areas, into Western Europe, to the bigger cities there, London, Paris, all those kind of things. And then in the second one, we had people migrating from Europe to where?
Yes.
We had 25 million people come where from Europe? In the early 1900s, guys. I know you guys went to school.
Yeah.
To New York. Yes, New York, the United States. They were coming to the colonies, right? So they started flocking to it. The American cities grew dramatically. They wanted to be closer to work opportunities and live somewhere where we could reap the benefits of large-scale industrial projects. Think indoor plumbing. You got to remember, before the turn of the century, there was a lot of, you didn't have indoor plumbing. Okay, you had to go to the outhouse. You didn't have hot and cold water. They boiled water and then poured it into, haven't you guys seen the old Westerns? I'm a big Western buff. I love John Wayne. Some of you guys are, who's John Wayne? Shame on you guys. Kids nowadays, right? We're going to talk about you too. The millennials and all the Gen X. And yeah, I know. I don't understand them either. But like electricity, there was a lot of times in rural countries, they didn't have electricity. So they were coming into the areas to get those accessible schools and even more so medical care. Your doctors were in the bigger towns a lot of times. They didn't have them out in the country. That's why we had that migration coming in. Now, the introduction of interchangeable parts, the assembly line production, Ford had one of the first production lines, automatic production lines. Okay, anybody knew that? That was Ford? Yeah. So it included automobile electrification of homes and businesses and more. So it was a major migration to towns and cities. Business factories behind the revolution were located in nation's towns, cities. 11 million Americans migrated from the countrysides. 11 million. Okay, back then that was a lot of people. And then 25 million immigrants coming mostly from Europe moved to the United States, one of the largest mass migrations in our history. Okay? And you're like, well, Kevin, why in the hell do I care? Right? I'm here, I'm thinking about real estate. I want to learn how to do my next frickin' flip. Right? Well, this is why. How did industrial revolution impact housing? Well, in the first wave, there's about 1800, there was only 23 cities with over 100,000 citizens. By 1900, there were 135 cities over 100,000 citizens in Western Europe. That's only the first revolution. What if you were buying homes during that time? Do you think you would make some money? Absolutely, appreciation. Second wave, now right after the Civil War and then about in 1920, almost 11 million Americans moved from the farms to the cities, and another 25 million, of course, coming in from overseas. This was huge migrations, okay, into the huge cities. Well, they have to have a place to live, right? What are the major things that you have to have? Shelter, food, water, right? That's what they have to have, and that's what they were getting in cities. So as the new towns and cities rapidly developed during the Industrial Revolution, the need for cheap housing near the factories increased. You had all these factories, and all these factory workers are coming now to work in these factories, right? Well, they got to live somewhere, right? So the need for housing increased. So all these developers started coming in and doing what? building houses. They build these row houses. Think New York. All those road housing. That happened back in the turn of the century, guys. How many of those people would like to own some of those road housing? Double hand, man. Right? So that's where you have to think. So workers often paid high rents for, at best, substandard housing back then. This was ghettos, guys, but they were still paying high rents. Why? Demand. They had to have a place to live because that's where they were working, right? Does that make sense? You see where we're looking at history now? So today, what happened in March 2020? Was it March 2020? Right? March 17th, I think it was, right around there. I know I was getting ready to go to spring training down in Arizona to see my Dodgers. I'm a big baseball fan. Love them. I bleed Dodger blue. There's no Angel fans in here, are there? They're like, I'm not saying anything. No, I love you Angels too. Okay, but I'm a Dodger fan. Always have been since back in the 60s. I followed my Dodgers, and I love my Vince Scully. God bless him. You know, and but today, like I said, today might usher in a reversal of this trend. So we had all these people in these two revolutions, industrial revolutions, coming in. So now, what are we doing right now on this computer right here? We got Zoom. We got what, 15, 20 people, Kurt, that aren't even sitting in this room that are watching me, right? Isn't that awesome? So it's a reversal of this trend as Americans move back to the small towns and rural areas in droves for the first time in over 100 years. Why are they starting to move out of LA? They're starting to leave California. Why? Anybody? Working remotely. They're able to work remotely. COVID? What? Yes. So the average, and we're going to talk about the average price in LA. The median home value in Los Angeles is what, about 800,000? The median home value 2 hours north of here is 345,000. I can get a 3,500 square foot home, maybe 4,000 square foot home, sitting on a 15,000 square foot lot, but for about 500,000 maybe in the nice neighborhoods. How many people, can we get that house down here for that price? Why the hell not? I'll tell you much right now, I'd much rather live up there than here. You guys got too much traffic jams. So I drove these freeways for 20 years. I'm done. And so, I mean, try going over Sepulveda Pass, right? You don't pack just lunch, you pack dinner too. But in 100 years, over 100 years, first time people are leaving, okay? As a real estate broker, I am mostly a listing agent, okay? I don't deal with buyers as much. 70% of my business this year, or last year, excuse me, was leaving California. They were going to Tennessee, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. I had a couple in Idaho. I had one go to Colorado. Why are they leaving California? It's expensive to live. They don't want the hustle and bustle of the traffic jams. They don't want to drive down the 405 and the 101 anymore, and, you know, in traffic for 5 hours. You know, they're leaving. The rat race is not all what it was cracked up to be anymore. And you know, the thing is, I know my son graduated from Cal Poly Pomona, my youngest boy, and he works in the lending industry, and he worked down in Orange County. He moved actually up here to LA right now, but he's getting ready because he just got excited. He's finishing his master's at Cal State LA. He's going to be there 2 years. You know where he's going after that? Central California. You know why? Because the cost of affordability, and he can still get an LA salary because he works remote. He hasn't stepped foot into his office for 2 years. He hasn't had to. He works everything over the phone, over the computer. He Zooms, whatever, Zoom, whatever. Sometimes use Microsoft Teams, right? But we have all of that. Work doesn't need to happen in the office building anymore. We're losing the daily commute. It's not a bad thing, guys. How many people would like to be able to go to work and not drive on the 405? Hello, right? Focusing life around home reduces expenses, obviously. Family-centric living has unexpected benefits. How many single moms? I know I got a couple that are on my team, single moms. Tara. And she's worked for me for 10, 12 years now. And I remember her girls, they were just babies. And Sierra now she's in high school. She went on her first date, broke my heart. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting old. My granddaughter had her first date. I'm like, damn, I'm really freaking old now. But social distancing may become permanent, guys. How many people are tired of wearing these damn things? I'm telling you, I'm over it. Okay, getting burnout. Rearranging priorities may create an unprecedented change in the housing market, and what a great opportunity for the savvy real estate investor. Okay, opportunity. Where there is chaos or where there is confusion becomes opportunity. We saw that opportunity back in the early 2000s. Okay. I remember going ahead, I'm gonna tell a story real quick, where we had builders that were building and we were appreciating so fast in the early 2000s that I would come down and I'd write $1,000 check on a property, right? New construction. Within 30 days, they hadn't even broke ground. I'd wholesale that contract off for $30,000. Told you, remember I was a wholesaler. How many people would like to do that? Hello? Not bad, huh? Let me get this thing. So housing must accommodate the new normal. Anybody love that term, the new norm? I've heard that so many times. I'm about ready to puke. But it is, but it's appropriate, okay? As more companies allow employees to work from home or some type of hybrid, okay, more and more Americans may consider a dramatic housing change. I know I have a lot of people as I'm consulting with different investors as well as different buyers and sellers. They're leaving Southern California and Northern California, San Francisco area and things like that. And they're coming to like the affordable areas in California and like Bakersfield, Fresno, things like that throughout the Central Valley because it's cheaper and they can still work remotely. The ones in the Central Valley, they're leaving, they're going to other states. Okay, so there's a migration, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. We're in a third wave, guys. Third wave of migration, and this is the time to take advantage of that. So they're no longer handcuffed to big cities. As a result, many of them may come to see the advantages of small-town life. More square footage. Okay, you can get a 3,500 to 4,000 square foot home for $500,000 in a nice neighborhood with good schools. You can't get that down here. Okay, larger dining rooms, quiet properties, smaller communities, more space between them in urban metro areas. Now, anybody here heard of the 6 degrees of separation? Yes, no, yeah? In Bakersfield, there's 2. Everybody knows everybody. Am I lying, girls? No, everybody knows everybody. That's really funny a lot of times where we'll sit down, they'll bring in a contract. What's the first thing I ask you guys? Who's the other agent? Because usually we'll know them, right? And it's like, oh yeah, let's get this deal work. But we all know each other. Generally, there's obviously people. There's 400,000 people in the city of Bakersfield, 1 million people in the county of Kern. I don't know everybody. I'm working on it. Networking, right? Networking is your net worth, right? There you go. So I would expect workspace flexibility coupled with historical low interest rates right now. Historically, I remember when I bought my first house, interest rates were at 17, 18%. There were some at 21%. I remember I got my first loan at 12.9%. I'm like, yes! That's awesome. They're like, you're insane, Kevin. Right? You remember that? I know. That was what, late 70s, late 80s, late 80s. Yeah. Ay, ay, ay. Now I'm really showing my age, huh? So, but the new ways to place and live, you will find more real estate agents advertising listings in the small city. Okay. This is led by a shifting mindset of 3 different generational cohorts. Does anybody name those? Who do you think those 3 generations are? What? Baby boomers, okay.
Millennials.
Millennials. Who else? Third one. Gen X. Right? Let's talk about our favorites. And I think, what are the ones after them? What was it, like Gen Y or Z or something like that? Yeah, they're not ready yet. They're not ready to buy homes yet. But we have our millennials right now. Now, this is anyone born. Now, yes, these dates can be argued, but this is the basics, guys, okay? Anyone between 81 and 96. God, I was just graduating high school then. They're like, God, I wasn't even born then. I got 2 of the young ones back there laughing. No, I'm kidding, girls. What year were you born?
Right in the middle.
You're right. Are you a millennial? God bless you. So we go ahead as this segment of America population has what probably the largest buying power right now. It makes sense why we're paying attention to that generation. And as investors, you need to pay attention to them. Okay? You need to cater to this generation right now to be able to make money, or you should. Here's what you need to keep in mind, though. They have a strong interest, and tell me if I'm lying on this, okay? They have a strong interest in green spaces typically, and low impact footprints makes a living in high density cities less appealing. They may not be interested in having nearby homes. Alternatively, they might want to be close to large cities, you know, like maybe an hour and a half away, be able to come into the city if they need to. That sound about right? Okay. Thank you for confirming that. I'll buy you a glass of wine later. So smaller towns with easy access to major metros may see a nice boost also. Okay. And then this shared sentiment among millennials could make this group a strong growth driver in small town housing markets. So this is why we need to move, especially you flippers, when you're looking in areas to invest in, to see where you can make it happen for them. When you're doing what I call an investor profile, you're sitting here talking to different potentially buyers, and you're saying, okay, what criteria you're looking for? Right there, guys. For that generation, on average, are there going to be more specific things? Absolutely. Okay. Let's talk about our Gen X. A little older than our millennials. These are typically born between 65. Now they say from 58 to 81, but I disagree with that a little bit. There's actually a small group between 1960 and 1965. And there was an article in the LA Times, and they called it, "Who are the Tweeners?" Okay, do you remember something about that? That was going on? I don't know. You're younger than I am probably, but I don't know. I'm 60 this year.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely.
You're a baby.
Yeah.
So, but I'm telling you right now, I was born in 1962. Okay, and so I'm in this group, and because technically they say I'm a baby boomer. And I tell you right now, guys, I do not relate to World War II. I don't remember World War II. I barely remember Vietnam, okay, when I was a kid. And the girls back there was like, what's Vietnam? I'm giving you millennials a hard time. But there's, where was I talking about now? But yeah, so there's these tweeners. There's this group that I think is too young to be a baby boomer, but yet they're too old to be a Gen Xer. Okay, I don't consider myself a Gen Xer, but I'm too old to be, or excuse me, too young to be a baby boomer. And that's why we had those tweeners, and that's what they call those tweeners. But the majority of real estate articles may be focusing on the millennials again, but keep an eye out on these guys here. They're up and coming, okay? or they're already there. I'm sorry. They're often forgotten, the middle child, what we call the middle child, those Gen Xers. They're like, yeah, that's kind of like the redheaded stepchild. Don't tell me you're falling in that generation, right? No, I'm kidding. But they are. They're often forgotten a lot of times, and they're becoming empty nesters right now because their kids are growing up and they're leaving. Okay, so they're becoming empty nesters right now. And this is something that you might want to take a look at them, because when you become an empty nester, what are you doing? Looking at possibly downsizing. So possibly you can get a deal when they want to sell, and you get another deal when they want to buy something. Maybe they're buying one of your flips, one of your rehabs. They're wanting to downsize from a 4-bedroom, 3-bath down to maybe a 2-bedroom and an office, right? From a 3,000, 4,000 square foot house down to maybe a 2 or 1,500 square foot, right? So we need to take a look at this generation in regards to that, because they're going to move down. Or what else is happening in this generation? What's happening with their, go ahead.
Taking care of their parents.
Exactly. Multi-generational housing in this generation a lot. They're taking care of their parents. Or, I always hate to say that, what's happening with the kid that wants to play Nintendo or Xbox all the time and eating pizza? Never wants to leave home. Failure to launch, I always say. but it happens a lot. You get multi-generational housing, especially in this generation. This is something you also want to take a look at. What if we're looking at a 2-on-1? Does anybody know what a 2-on-1 is? Anybody not know what a 2-on-1 is? Okay, a 2-on-1 is generally on an R2 zoned lot. Okay, it has 2 structures, 2 buildings. It's usually a house and then a guest house. 2-on-1 lot, get it? It's R2, why? Anybody know your zonings? R1, R2, R3, R4. You get into your commercial, C1, C2, C3. It's different city zonings. If you're going to become an investor, you better know these. Know your zonings. Know what you can do in particular zonings. An R2 can be a duplex, a triplex, fourplex, up to a fourplex. It just talks about the density. And then you get up into R3, R4, talks about the density in apartment buildings, things like that. R1 is what? Single family. Can I put a duplex on an R1? Don't get complicated on me. Yes, you can. But technically, generally, I know. But this is something that you want to look at for this generation as well. Multifamily sometime, or multi-generational, okay? Although it may have been have rented or leased after 2008 housing crash, right? We talked about that. A Gen X home ownership comeback is underway. And when they want to settle down, it'll probably be away from the hustle and bustle of urban locations. They're wanting to get away from that. These guys went through the 2008 crash. Okay, they're scarred. But they can be very frugal, and they're the caretakers. Well, I call them the caretakers a lot of times. They're the ones that are taking care of mom. They're taking care of the kids below that aren't wanting to move out or something like that. They're taking care of multi-generations. This generation, believe it or not, impresses the hell out of me. Okay? Our silver tsunami. Okay? These are your baby boomers, guys. They may disrupt the housing market as the post-World War II generation retires, moves, and downsizes. They are also going in and they're having adult children coming back in with them sometimes as caretakers, right? Or they're going in and taking care of sometimes the Gen X or Millennials when they're having babies. Grandma is taking care of grandchild, right? While the adult child is going to work. Single moms, stuff like that, and grandma's helping out. These are the kind of things that we need to think on a lot of this as well. But when they're not moving in with their millennial Gen X, just like I said, expect this cohort to look for small, easy to care for spaces without giving up their favorite comforts. They want to be independent. They want to be able to get out there and still be active. Think active adult areas, things like that. They want to be near their creature comforts. Okay? Small towns give this a lot, where big metropolises will not. Less developed small towns that get smart can cater to this, as well as good investors can cater to this. Okay? As a realtor, I'm also what they call an SRES. It's a senior real estate specialist. Okay, it's a designation given by NAR, National Association of Realtors, and that's one of the designations that I have. Is like because I work a lot with this generation in regards to what they're doing on the investor side, as well as on my realtor side, both sides. Okay, small towns and communities that offer active and walkable neighborhoods with social clubs, communities, and active centers, pools, walking trails, fitness and centers, and health cares, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's very, very appealing to them. They want to be independent and active. They want to go to the pool. Okay, they may not be wearing bikinis anymore, but they still want to be active, and they're in there, doing their things. Don't forget about these guys here. So let's talk a little bit more as we're focusing on these generations. Okay, these are the ones that are moving right now. Those three primarily. They're migrating. They're leaving the metropolitan areas, going into smaller communities. This is why smaller towns is advantages as investors we need to take a look at. When you're here in LA and you're looking at a flip, you're looking at a minimum, what, $600,000 investment at least? Am I wrong? You know what our average investment is up in Central California, Danny? About 200, 300? Okay, yeah. Danny flipped over 8 houses last year, just last year. On one particular one we worked on together, Stinky Shack, we picked it, I don't remember, what we picked that up for? 175, put another, how much into it? 45 or something like that. We sold it for $340,000. Anybody like to do that? Yeah. We had another one that I wasn't able to, I was busy, but and I need to tell this story real quick before we get into some of these numbers here. I'm going to talk about candy. I went ahead and I had a gentleman, a friend of mine came to me and says, hey, Kevin, I'm renting a house right now, him and his girlfriend, okay? And he is probably a Gen Xer, okay? Maybe he might be a millennial. He's right on the border there. But he came to me and he says, hey, you know what? My mom's getting elderly. I don't have great credit, but my mom has great credit. We want to try to buy a house together so that I can take care of her in her waning years. She's a baby boomer. Her husband was a World War II veteran. He's passed on now. And she's a spunky little 80-some-odd-year-old gal. Man, she cracked me up, but I loved her. Her name was Linda. And but she goes ahead, and I go and I take a look at her house, and I said, Linda, I said, I know you own this house outright. I said, and you want to move with your son Dennis and stuff like that. I says, well, what do you want for your house? And I was looking just as a realtor. Okay. She says, Kevin, if you can get me 60,000, I'll be happy. I went, oh. I says, well, I tell you what, why don't I give you 65,000 and I'll pay for all your expenses, all your title and escrow. She says, that sounds great. Wrote that up real quick. Hey, Danny, I got this house. Da, 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 da. What did you say?
I said, how come you don't already have it written up?
I went ahead and wholesaled it off to them for 10 grand. Okay, and his wife Bernadine right here, who actually works on my team. And I said, guys, I don't have time for this. You guys go and do this, right? Now he picked it up for 75,000. Why is he at 75,000 now? Huh? Yeah, he's got to pay me 10 grand, right? So I write it up. I give it to him for with $10,000, right? So he gets 75, and he has to pay all the escrow fees. Were you happy to do that?
Oh, extremely.
So we go ahead. Now, how much did you put into that house?
About 65.
65,000? Now I'm going to talk to the boss over here now. So we're about 120, 130 in,
140.
140 in. How much did we sell that for, Miss Realtor that sold it? $250,000. How many people would like to do that? That's about $100,000 profit. How long did it take you?
For 2 weeks.
And that was you were taking your time.
Well, in all fairness, they ended up in the hospital for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm completely, yeah, so yeah, slow me down. Thank you.
But that's one of his 8 flips. How many people would like to do that? It can be done, guys. Okay, easily. So let's take a look at some of these values now. Okay, so I'll wrap this up real quick. I only got a couple more slides. I've got about 10 minutes maybe. Okay. They're saying I got to roll. I've been taking too long. So home values in LA are about $800,000, while sales climbed 6.2%. Orange County, the median home value rose about 13 to about almost 900,000, while sales fell. In Riverside County, the median home price rose about 18 to a record 520,000, while sales rose 3.2. Home values in Kern County consists of about 66 cities. There are about a little over 4,200 homes that were for sale over a period of time, ranging from $15 to about 40 million. Okay, the median home listing price is $330. Actually, right now I just checked it before I came up here because I wrote this only about. I think I wrote this thing about a week or two ago. We were trying to put this together. Christina and I are like, what do we want to talk about? So I've never given this speech before, by the way, guys. So you guys are getting it for the first time. Our median home value right now is $340,000 and $345,000. So it's actually gone up within the last couple of weeks. Okay. Median listing home price per square foot is about $199. I'm expecting as soon as the January numbers come out, it's going to pop over $200 a square foot. Okay, which is the first time ever in Central California. Median sold home price is about $349,000. So tell me, if the median listing price is $330 and the median sold price is $350, what's happening? When a house is selling, it's selling for more than what it's being asked for, right? Okay. So let's go back and try to fly through this real quick. Let's talk about some of the rental values as well. Cost of renting, according to Rent Cafe, the average rent in Los Angeles is about $2,500. I know it's more than that in some areas as well. You got $4,000 or $5,000 in rent and things like that. But your average is per Rent Cafe is that. Okay, and then it fluctuates. In Kern County, the average rent is around $1,300, and it varies depending on factors as well. Because I know you go on to some of our west side. What are we at? About 25 to 3,000, sometimes 3,200, and something like that for a nice little house over there. So, and people in Kern County are freaking out on these rent rates. Okay, they're like, that's LA prices, But the Bakersfield housing market has tightened drastically. And in recent years, as a shortage of both apartments and homes for rent has met with a heightened demand from people moving from Southern California and Northern California. Okay, they're migrating, they're moving. So what do you think would be good as an investor to go in after? Rentals, right? Multifamily. Bakersfield, California, KGET, Channel 17, that's the NBC up in Bakersfield, okay? A new report showed Bakersfield broke into the top 100 for the most expensive rental market in the nation. Okay. Meanwhile, the city ranked as the 12th most affordable city in the U.S. You think we got something there, guys? Do you think you may want to pay attention 2 hours north of here in regards to what you're investing in? I know Kirk and I've done one. I helped him on one up there. I know Christina and I've done a couple before. Something that you might want to take a look at. So last slide here, I think this is Bakersfield a good place to invest in? Bakersfield investment property has always been popular because it's one of the last remaining places that will still allow positive cash flow. I have a triplex right now that I bought Now, it was a few years back, I bought it for $50,000. I put another $50,000 into it, so I'm $100,000 into it. I went ahead and I refinanced. I wanted to take about 70 grand out. At that time, it appraised for over 200,000. It's probably worth about $325 now. Okay, it cash flows about $2,500 a month. Wait, did anybody hear that? I don't think they're getting the numbers here. No. Okay. With year-over-year rising in Bakersfield home prices, it stands in the top 10% nationally. 2 hours north of here, guys. Top 10% nationally. Okay. For real estate appreciation, Bakersfield real estate has appreciated 123% over the last decade. Last 10 years, 123%, and in some areas more. How many, have you seen that down here? I didn't think so. Okay. Expecting an annual appreciation rate of about 8.3% on average. Okay, a little bit more than that, actually. It's actually about 9 to 10%. This last year, I think we appreciated 21 to 22%. Somewhere in there. I didn't know the exact number, but it's the low 20s. Okay? And other than that, thank you. Yay.